Hello, I'm John Nelson, Music Director of the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra. I have previously invited television cameras into my studio in order to give you a glimpse of the fascinating process of rehearsing. From the first exchange of ideas between two artists to the final performance. What you are about to see is a variation on the same theme, but perhaps more unusual. The process of creating a new piece of music and bringing it from its initial conception in the composer's mind and the writing of his ideas on manuscript to the world premiere performance itself. The piece is a concerto for timpani and orchestra. The composer, William Kraft. The soloist, Tom Akins, principal timpanist of the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra, for whom the piece was written. Commissioned by Indiana Percussion Projects Incorporated, the concerto was received enthusiastically by critics, audience, and musicians alike. I hope you enjoy it as well.
March 9th, 1984. Clowes Memorial Hall on the campus of Butler University in Indianapolis. Some 2,000 people are moving into the home of the Indianapolis Symphony with a variety of thoughts on their minds. The orchestra will shortly be presenting a concert beginning with two short works of Delius and ending with the Second Symphony of Johannes Brahms. But it is the music in the middle of the program that is causing the extra excitement and a great deal of curiosity on this particular evening. These people will soon be witness to the world premiere of the Concerto for Timpani and Orchestra by William Kraft. When the time came for actually setting the stage for the concerto, the task was not small. Kraft had written for 5 timpani, and soloist Tom Akins had suggested the additional use of 4 rototoms in certain sections. And all of this had to be placed in exactly the right spot. A drum out of place just a bit could cause real problems during the performance. Symphony stage manager Joe Quinn and his assistant John Lane had carefully marked the floor of the stage during rehearsals, and they were accurately hitting those marks now. However, the placement of the solo instruments was only part of the necessary preparation. Kraft had composed his work for 2 string orchestras, and conductor John Nelson had designed a stage placement that would allow for both orchestras to play in unison or independently of each other as the moment might demand. The winds, brass, and percussion were to be located in a more usual placement. With everything and everyone in place, and the sound of the tuning aid dying away, the time has come to make music. Here are timpani soloist Tom Akins and conductor John Nelson for the world premiere of the Concerto for Timpani and Orchestra by William Kraft. The story of the William Kraft Concerto for Timpani and Orchestra is more than what will happen in the next 24 minutes. Like a large number of works of art, the planning and the creativity took much time before this premiere performance. Let's look back now at that story.
I had played a timpani concerto twice previously. In 1965, with the Roanoke, Virginia Symphony Orchestra, I performed the Concerto for 5 kettle drums and orchestra by Robert Paris. And in 1970, with the Indianapolis Symphony, I had done the Concerto for Timpani and Orchestra by Werner Tereken. Both of these pieces are good works, and they both have moments in them that are highly satisfying both for the player and the audience. In the case of the Paris, it's really a challenge for the performer to see if he can do all that Paris has conceived, especially from the footwork standpoint. There's a great deal of very difficult pedaling, and probably, in truth, it's more satisfying for the performer than for the audience in that particular case. In the Tereken, a wonderful second movement and a very well conceived, artistically put together cadenza. But again, in both of these pieces, several ingredients that were nice, but the entire package somehow had some missing pieces to it. In my mind, there was not really a timpani concerto that was complete, that had from beginning to end all the ingredients that one would want to say that it was really a top quality, consistent piece of music.
I believe very strongly that one of the main things for a major symphony orchestra in America to do is to be the catalyst for new music. Every piece that we love, take Tchaikovsky 5, take Beethoven 5th, take Debussy La Mer, take the Rite of Spring, if that is the kind of thing that you really love, all of these pieces were new pieces at one point. They had their first listening at one point, and all the pieces that I mentioned were pieces that were not particularly appreciated the first time they were listened to. We all know the story of Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, but it goes through the whole, almost the entire repertoire. There are very few composers who are content in just recreating sounds of the past. So there is a certain, what is the word I'm looking for, caution that one feels when one commissions new music because of the response of the audience. But what we've tried to develop is a sense of wonder, a sense of excitement, a sense of challenge in having new works done for our audience.
I suggested to John that it sounded to me like this project could be taken on by a group in the city known as Indiana Percussion Projects Incorporated. This was a not-for-profit corporation set up primarily to foster the development of a chamber music unit called the Sonic Boom Percussion Ensemble. This is a 5-man group that plays a lot of colleges and art museums and chamber series, various churches, or wherever the opportunity for percussion chamber music would present itself. And Indiana Percussion Projects had been set up to help obtain grants and raise funds on behalf of this group, and also to be ready to step in whenever other percussion-related projects would present themselves. These gentlemen are extremely enthusiastic about the idea of moving forward in the areas of percussion. They are not particularly percussionists themselves. As a matter of fact, of the board members, only 2 of them can be really called musicians, one of whom is in fact a percussionist, but whose major emphasis is as a university administrator. Again, another musician, there's an attorney, a CPA, there's a financial advisor. The president of the organization is a man by the name of Alfred Kirst, who is a retired merchant in the city of Indianapolis, and who, after retiring from his position with one of the major department stores, has just totally engrossed himself in arts-related projects. He's an extremely active man now, perhaps even more so than when he was still in his position as a financial merchant. At any rate, I described the project to them at a board of directors meeting, and they were enthusiastic, but they were also practical, again, about the idea. There is a tremendous amount of business experience and expertise among this board, and they had some very real questions that they wanted to have answered before they were able to move ahead and give their approval to the project. They were eager to move forward once some of those questions had been answered, and of course all of us can be grateful for the real support and enthusiasm that came from Indiana Percussion Projects, because without them to really carry the ball throughout all this, this piece of music never would have come into existence. William Kraft had been the timpanist of the Los Angeles Philharmonic for 20 years, and his time became increasingly devoted to composition. This certainly became no accident, because he was very much in demand because of the skill of his works. He had been writing music for a number of years. He had written some pieces for solo percussionists, some pieces for percussion ensemble. He then grew to being a composer for chamber ensembles and full orchestras and just any possible performing combination, all the while maintaining a very careful idea about the use of percussion instruments and the exploration in the use of percussion instruments.
The timpani do not have the expressive qualities of most other instruments, piano, violin, etc., the instruments that are characteristically used for concerti, and they are used because of their expressive qualities and the wide range. It is in descending order from those instruments that the instruments have expressive qualities, and to get down to percussion, here at the end of the ladder, where the problems are the greatest to compete with an orchestra. With percussion, you have a variety of instruments so that you can change colors and move about so that it doesn't get wearing. I couldn't, for instance, stand to do a xylophone concerto. I would find it very, very, very difficult because of that. The timpani presented that problem, that they lacked a large range of expression. So I was reluctant to think of a concerto, a full-blown concerto, so we talked first about doing short movements, maybe 5 movements, which would have great contrasting characters. But when I got started on the piece, more and more I thought about it, and thought about the problems of expressivity and keeping the attention so that the timpani were the center of attention. I evolved an approach that I realized allowed me to do a full-blown traditional 3-movement concerto.
One of the things that both Bill Kraft and I wanted was an opportunity to really get our feet wet in this piece through experimentation before any notes were really written down on the page. And through his various appearances at different seminars and workshops throughout the country, I thought it might be a good idea if, when flying over the city of Indianapolis, he planned to stop for a day or two and really give ourselves the opportunity to explore some of the possibilities and to really get into the piece. I thought it was important for him to know the kind of thoughts that were on my mind as to what devices might go into the piece, how I conceived the piece to be, and then, of course, obviously, he has total control from there on. He wanted to know even more about my playing, although he had heard me play in the orchestra before and had also heard me play by myself. Now that we were directly approaching this piece, he wanted another dose of what he referred to as the personality of my playing. So we spent a couple of days at my house in the drum studio simply sharing ideas. Some of them became directly related to the concerto, some of them didn't. And again, some of them was really just 2 guys talking about something that they both enjoy very much.
Think that'll work?
Yeah, but what can you do that's maybe even softer than that, so we really come out of nothing?
Well, we could...
Even softer than that. Maybe you can cover one of those with felt, soft felt, something like billiard table.
Yeah, you know,
felt.
you could cover each finger with something. You know, you could really get quite varied with the whole idea, and cover. You know, a first finger, for instance, would be easy to do because you could cover a finger with some sort of cloth, and then you can play using a covered first finger. The first finger would cover and then play soft, and then after you've done that, you could pull that off and switch to, you could play a second finger, or for that matter, you could play everything. Depends on how far you want to go. But to see, can you hear the difference? Will you be able to tell the difference between cloth and leather? 1 finger, 3 fingers, full hand. We could dead stroke. You can dead stroke by getting.
One of the most unique centers for creativity in the entire world is the MacDowell Colony in Peterborough, New Hampshire. It was founded in 1907 by the American composer Edward MacDowell and his wife Marion, and some 2,000 composers, writers, sculptors, visual artists, and other talented individuals have used the colony to create masterful works of art for the benefit of us all. Bill Kraft had gone there before, and he felt like a return visit would be appropriate for the development of his new work.
My particular studio was at the bottom of a road that they had dug out of the woods. A huge window right where I put the table. The piano in the corner, the table here, and I would look out the window, and it was like a canyon of marvelous colors. It was summer, and the trees, the leaves are beginning to change. Well, to look up and be absorbed by that is a marvelous experience. and the walks that one could take in the woods there, all that. It's an ideal place for creativity. They knew exactly what they were doing. Generally, I like to work on one piece at a time because I've found that the mind is always working. The subconscious is an incredible thing. I have had experiences where I'd be doing something completely different, and suddenly the solution to a problem that had cropped up in the morning and that caused me to quit composing for that day, supposedly, came to me just from nowhere. I'll get up early in the morning and I'll go down and look at the score first thing, and if I can see what to do, I start working until it runs out. It's easier to go to a place, as I did to the MacDowell colony, and work as much as I wanted without interruption.
The commission fee was a significant enough amount, but IPP felt that it was necessary to raise some extra funds so that some type of permanent recording could be made, and so that when the premiere performances were over, there would be something that would be of lasting value. I was going to coordinate the fundraising efforts while Bill was writing the piece. And we received some major funding from the Indiana Arts Commission, money that they were distributing from the National Endowment for the Arts. We also were able to receive some very interesting funding from other sources, and I think one of the most interesting sources of funds came one day when I was at home and received a phone call from Mrs. Nancy Cannell, who was a second-grade teacher at Park Tudor School. She said that her class always had a fundraising project that was related to an arts project going on in the city, and she invited me to come to the school and make a presentation for her second graders. I went to the school and had a great time talking to the kids, describing what we were going to try to do in the way of having a new work commissioned, what a timpani was, what it was really all about, and how their efforts could coordinate with ours. What they wanted to do was have a used book sale, and the way they were going to construct things, they would have students from throughout the school bring in their used paperback books, which they would buy for a dime and then resell to other school students at the rate of 25 cents. Well, obviously that 15 cents profit then became the money that would go to the arts organization. I thought it was a very interesting project for the kids to be involved in something like this for actually many aspects. They were learning about fundraising. They were also able to see the significance of the money that they raised and how it would become useful to organizations such as the Indiana Percussion Projects and the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra, and how that money could become useful for the ongoing concert preparation. They also were able to learn a bit about actual music because I went to the school, took timpani with me, and showed them both the mechanical workings of the drums and also something about the way the piece was going to be constructed. They then came to a rehearsal. As we were in the dress rehearsal stages of the concert, they were able to see the last minute, the final touches that went on to the piece before we got ready. A little bit of show and tell never hurt, and it was fun to let the kids see the drums up close, to show them how you could create sounds on a percussion instrument. They were, of course, familiar with the idea that Saturday morning cartoons had a lot of timpani glissandos in them, but they found out that there was a lot more to it, and I think they were perhaps most captivated by the use of the pedal and the use of different types of sticks and different types of sound creation, such as the hands and the gloves and things of that sort. We really enjoyed their presence in the project. The biggest favor that Bill Kraft did for me was that he finished the piece well on schedule. I had my part 5 months ahead, and I was able to just begin to absorb the piece, first through home study and a lot of marking. Really, I was able to see and plan and think about what I wanted to do in advance. I was able to get into the concert hall. Our home at Clowes Hall is a multi-purpose hall and was used by a lot of people other than the Indianapolis Symphony, but great cooperation from the hall management and the stagehands allowed me to really get in and do the kind of work that I wanted to do. I practiced during lunch times. I'd come early, I'd stay late. Whatever it took, I was able to get going. Every concerto, of course, is really a show of technique and gymnastics, and there was a lot of movement around the drums, but Bill Kraft was very concerned about expression. He had made that clear early on, and I was doing my best to fulfill the ideas that he had created. The idea of using some gloves, of changing types of sticks. He wanted to use wood sticks a lot. As a matter of fact, that's one of the basic differences that we had, although we had very few as we worked together getting this piece ready. He wanted to use wood sticks a lot more than I did. I guess the sound of wood sticks on timpani is not my favorite device, but we were able to work out a very equitable and agreeable situation regarding the use of wood. Any real timpani concerto has a lot of pedal work in it, and this certainly was no different from that. But what was interesting about the pedal work, of course, was that there was a great deal of it, both in a melodic sense and most especially in a harmonic sense. I found myself in the harmonic structure of the orchestra quite often, and although my feet were moving as fast as my hands on a great number of occasions, still things seemed to work out pretty well. There was an interesting effect in this piece, especially as relates to the ideas of pedal work, because somehow the idea of death hanging over this entire concerto was a factor that nobody planned. It just sort of happened that way. While Bill was writing the piece and preparing to do the second movement, which has a great deal of pedal work in it, he was saddened to learn of the death of his mother. Of course, that affected a great deal of the material that went into the piece, especially in that second movement. In these days, as we were getting ready for the performance, John Nelson was really living very close to the telephone because he had been informed that his father was gravely ill and very near death down in Costa Rica. So, as happy an occasion as this was going to be, still had the pallor of death over it, something that really gave quite a bit of cause for thought. Bill, again, in the idea of using expression, chose to use different types of mutes on the drums. First the regular ones, and then these, which are simply miniature scores, used not only to mute, but also to create some harmonic effects. You get a very different sound using these than you did those that you saw previously that were the felt cylinders. Again, working with the harmonic idea, Bill had devised the concept of using 4 mallets and writing me in unison with 4 celli, also playing a line working in diffisi.
The opportunity to do a piece like this is, I think, a privilege with a composer of the stature of a Bill Kraft. He's a wonderful composer, excellent timpani and percussion player. It's an ideal circumstance, and also to do it with a timpanist like Tom Akins is wonderful. And so I'm very positive about the piece. The rehearsals have been a pleasure. Working with him has been a great pleasure. He obviously knows what he wants, knows how to get it. He's very easy to communicate with. I love working with composers in general because they are so open. You ask them a question about whether it should be this way or that way, and they say, well, what do you think? And they want the participation of the creative artist as a performer as well. So I found it wonderful to deal with him. The piece has a great deal of color, has nice shape. I was listening to it at the dress rehearsal because Bill Kraft conducted part of the dress rehearsal, and I just stood back from the piece. And it has continuity. It has marvelous sense of climax at the right time, beautiful sense of color. And you know that at the end of the first rehearsal, when we ran it through, there was an outburst of applause, not just for Tom Akins, but for the piece itself. And that says a lot. It says that the piece has been written well for each individual player. So I think it's a wonderful piece.